Huge milestone today. I officially acquired my second business. It is a huge sigh of relief. I have been so stressed out. It's been a big ball of anxiety. There were a few times where I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still stressors ahead of me with, finding additional funding, and I'll get through that. And dealing with new employees and structure and learning systems and how the business operates, the nuts and bolts of it. So that way I can optimize it and eventually scale it. I still have all of that hill to climb, but getting over this hump, man, it just feels like such a huge relief. So just wanted to share the experience that I went through, and hopefully you can take away a few pieces of information or nuggets that'll help you with your transition or whatever acquisition or deal you're working on. Welcome to the Legacy Builders Podcast, where we are redefining generational wealth one story at a time. I'm your host, Mario Gonzalez Jr., and if you're looking to build something bigger than yourself, then you are definitely in the right place. So, I bought this business because I was really looking for something that was fully absentee or pretty dang close to it. And I had been scoping around in my area here in the Treasure Valley in Boise, Idaho, and couldn't find anything that matched my criteria. And again, right, it's a small service-based business, non-sexy, that is cash flowing already, of course, that has enough money to hire an operator, preferably a subscription based. And ultimately, I landed on this business in Texas that is a daycare and boarding business. So it's still in the dog world. So now I own a board and train business. I own a poop scooping business here in Boise. And then I own a boarding and daycare business in Texas. And the reason why I loved this business is because this gal had been operating it for 9 years, right? It was kind of her baby. And during that time, she's established a very loyal client base. And it was netting about 110K SDE. So the margins are really, really healthy. And as I started looking at this, one of the red flags or yellow flags that I immediately ran into is that the books weren't super polished. And this is kind of what you get when you're dealing directly with the seller, which I'm glad I did, because she was just great to work with. She had gone through a lot of candidates who were interested in purchasing her business, and she kind of got burnt out in trying to educate folks. For me, I know the dog world really, really well. And so I was like, hey, I'm your last one. If the numbers make sense, let's do this. So I started going through all of the due diligence that you normally would, right? Looking at the books, and some of the books she had to go back and restructure the P&Ls and expenses. And there was a lot of stuff in there to do, but she kind of had, the bones of it, which was pretty good. And so I start doing really deep dive on the due diligence, making sure that the numbers checked out, looking at tax returns. And of course, me being me, I use ChatGPT as much as I could to verify numbers and check numbers. And I asked ChatGPT like 1,000 different ways. The same question, bottom line, is when I go through with the funding and the financing, how much money am I actually going to take home after debt service? Okay. And so this business was being sold for $300,000, and she said the price was firm. And I was like, okay, well, if the numbers check out, I want to pay you. I'm not trying to nickel and dime, right? Like it is an even exchange, not an even exchange, but it's an exchange, right? But I need to make sure that everything checks out. And so we settled on 300K, which was her asking price. And I was like, how am I going to fund this? I reached out to some lady on LinkedIn, which was a freaking game changer, because the SBA lenders I had reached out to before in previous deals were not responsive, or like, it's like they would listen to me, but not listen to me. They didn't think I was legit enough, or maybe the deal size that I'm bringing to them wasn't big enough for them, right? It just pennies to them. And so she was able to get me 2 term loans on my existing businesses and the value of $350,000 without me putting any capital down, which is great. And I later learned that it's very expensive debt. But out of the two term loans, I was going to have enough to purchase the business and then about 50 grand left over. So that way I can actually use to expand my existing businesses, whether that be cars or kennels for the dog training facility, you name it. And I got approved for a 200K term loan over 10 years. I think it was something like 14%. But the second loan for 150K got declined because I haven't owned the pet wish removal business long enough, or at least not on the tax return. And so at this point, I'm freaking out because I'm like, crap, I got 200K. How am I going to get another 100K? And so the lender has kind of been working in the background and scraping and reaching out to different banks or financial institutions to see who would lend me money. And at one point they came back, they're like, hey, I think we got 100K 4-year term loan for you. And so I'm automatically doing the math. I'm like, how am I going to make this work? I had structured this purchase off of $300,000 paid off over 10 years because that increases the net cash flow that I can take home every month, right? After debt service. And I was like, where am I going to come up with this 100K? They offer me the 4-year term loan for $100,000. And I'm like, crap, how am I going to make this work? And it works. It obviously minimizes how much I'm taking home because of the debt service, because now I'm shortening a 10-year term loan into a 4-year term loan. So they go through the financials and then that one fails. And then they come back and they're like, hey, I think we can get you 100K BLOC with a different bank. And so I talked to the lender, and then the lender comes back. He's like, yeah, your cash flow is strong for your dog training business. I think we could do this. I'm like, cool, let's go, right? And I start looking into the terms. Do I immediately have to pay it back after 12 months or bring my balance to zero? So I'm asking all the questions that you can think of, again, with the help of ChatGPT. And then they come back and they're like, hey, it's only $50,000 that we can approve you for. And I'm like, well, crap, I have to come up with the rest. So in the background, I'm talking to the seller and I'm like, hey, I want to get you $300,000 as fast as I can, but I need a plan B just in case. And so I start negotiating a seller's finance deal with her. And in the beginning, I'm asking for 5 years at 5%. I'm lowballing because I'm figuring she's going to want to go higher and negotiate. And if she wanted to go higher on the rate, I didn't really care. And so we get down to it and I'm like, well, what about a 3-year? And then she's like, I'd be comfortable with a 2-year at 7.5%. And I'm like, well, crap, that's definitely going to minimize my cash flow, but that is just worst case scenario, right? And so I structure everything through ChatGPT. This is her first time going through the process. This is my second time. First time was with a SBA loan, so slightly different, but I understand it well enough with the power of AI to be able to do a lot of those things on my own. So I structured rough drafts of what the purchase agreement would look like, the promissory note. She ended up getting those documents over to her attorney and to finalize them so that way we can get them signed. Now, on the finance piece, again, I was freaking out because I didn't think she was going to want to take me on 115K seller finance note over 2 years, right? And so I'm currently going in the process of getting that $50,000 business line of credit because I can spread that out over many years. And then that's a huge chunk off of my plate. And then that gives her 50K. So that brings down my payment to $65,000 to her, right? So the idea is that these first 2 rounds of financing, so 200K, which was actually 175K, and I'll touch on that. So 175K plus this 50K. When I give her that, it's going to increase my cash flow that I take home. And then over time, over the next 3, 6, 12 months, I can chase more capital that's long-term debt to pay her off. And then eventually after 2 years, I can refinance into an SBA loan, right? And then so that automatically it resets the clock, but then it's over 10 years. And that's kind of where the magic happens. So I was really trying to structure and figure out how to put these pieces together so that way this deal doesn't fall through and at least I can own the assets. And then from there, I can structure it and start slowly scaling it after about, I'd say 3 to 4 months. And then I wouldn't have to worry about paying her back and some of the added expenses that's going to come on with the acquisition. Okay. So going back to the term loan, just so that everybody's aware, when you are going through a lender who basically takes your financial profile, what they're going to do is have you sign an agreement. Now, this agreement says that if they are able to find you the money, then they're going to take a percentage. Okay. So in this case, it was 7%. So I not only owed the bank that furnished the loan, um, I believe 10%. So I got 185K from them. They took 15K. The person that sourced the bank got their 7%, which was about $9,000. So first, I thought I was going to get $200,000. Then it went to $185,000, and then went to $175,000. So in my head, as all of this was going on, I was trying to figure out how to structure finance. How much am I taking home? Does this deal make sense? I already had one acquisition fall through. I can't have this one fall through. Like, I have to make it make sense and then figure out how to pull it off. And that's how I am, right? But I want to figure out how to make things work, even if it doesn't make sense right now. And so I am stressed out beyond belief. I can't go to sleep. I know it's going to be worth it when I can pull it off, but it was a very, very stressful time. And then today, I go to the bank, I get the documents notarized that her attorney says which should be notarized, which was foreign to me because I bought a house remote, and this whole transaction happened remotely, mind you, because I'm here in Boise, Idaho, and the business is in Texas. And I get things notarized, and then I go back home so I can send the documents, e-signatures for the documents that didn't get notarized, and then send the wire for 185K. And I'm blocked at $50,000. And so now I have to go back to the branch. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, I came in and earlier and was told that I shouldn't have an issue sending a $185,000 wire. So they check my ID, they authenticate me, I sign documents, I get home. An hour later, the phone rings. It's an 888 number, and they're telling me that it's Chase fraud and they need to verify this wire before it goes out. And I'm a little confused because I'm like, hey, I've already gone into the branch, I've given my ID, I've signed documents. Like, why are you calling me for this? It just sounded a little fishy or scammy to me, you know? And so I'm answering some questions, and about halfway through, I stop her and I'm like looking up the 888 phone number to make sure it's legit Chase. And I see mixed signals. Some say it's legit, others said it was a scam. And so I stop her, I think at some point mid sentence, I'm like, hey, this doesn't feel right. I already went into the branch. I have asked, or I was, presented my ID. I've taken all those processes. Why am I having to be re-authenticated? Because I thought she was just trying to collect my information to go sell it somewhere else, And the answers that I got were very vague, and it freaked me out a little bit to the point where I was about to hang up and go check with the bank. But she reassured me enough. And after we hung up and we ended the call, I saw that the transfer went through. So I guess a key takeaway on that front is when you're sending a wire for a transaction, if you're not dealing with the title company and you're doing it on your own, make sure you understand the processes for that substantial amount of money, because fraud exists. Like, what if I sent this wire to the seller and it turns out to be the wrong account? What if I sent this wire to the seller and it's not a legit business, So due diligence is huge. Fortunately for me, I had access to all of the accounts and everything before the transition. Again, the documents or closing docs were tight knit, and so I didn't have any worries at all. But definitely keep that in mind. Now, as far as the first 7 days after close, I'm in an awkward state because the owner is traveling back to her hometown. Again, she's been kind of running this remote, and she's not going to really have time to get on a virtual meeting with me to walk through all the systems and all the processes. So she's trained an existing employee to book clients and do a little bit of the management stuff until I can actually get my hands on. I'm going to be poking around on the tools and trying to figure out what's what and who's who, but I want to make sure that I don't lose any revenue that is now considered mine, right? Because officially today, I officially take over. There's the transferring of the domain of the phone systems of Stripe. I got to set up a new Stripe account within the booking software, the customer CRM tool. So there's definitely a lot of things to do. And keep in mind that not every single deal is going to be structured the same way. I am very fortunate that I was able to work directly with the seller because had this gone through a broker, everybody knows broker wants to get paid. They want their money up front, as much of it as they can get anyways. So they're in the best interest of the seller, not necessarily the buyer. I feel like had it gone through a broker route, then the deal probably would have fallen through. But being as scrappy is the word I like to use as I am, and with the help of AI and ChatGPT, I think that it really put me in a strong position to know and understand and how to communicate with the seller, how to structure a seller finance deal, and just put all of the pieces together for the end result. So anyways, if you took anything away from this, great. Please share it with friends or family. Acquisitions can be exciting and scary and freaking nerve wracking. And man, it's definitely a ride and kind of an adrenaline rush, right? Especially after you go through a failure, it's kind of like you're chasing that win and you just want the win, and you want to achieve it at any cost. But mind you, like if it doesn't make sense and there's writing on the wall, just move on from it. So if you don't need any help, you can hit me up at lifetimelegacyholdings.com or any one of my social platforms. I'm happy to have that discussion with you. But thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next one.